I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but I'm so excited. I just got a text from one of my one-on-one mentoring students, Gina, who just got her first deal under contract. So she sent me a GIF, a GIF. Is it a GIF or a GIF? I don't know. Of Wonder Woman here, and saying we just got a contract signed and a copy of the contract and stuff like that. So I just want to give a special shout out to you, Gina, for getting your first deal under contract, and I'm excited to help you bring this home and get paid. So for those of you checking out the YouTube channel for the first time, or if you're a regular viewer, welcome. My name is Stephen Howell with productivewisdom.com. That's my website and blog. And I'm so excited to have you here as part of the Productive Wisdom family. And I am so grateful that you're coming here watching these videos. And today we got a great topic. This is something that with my customers in the Ultimate Wholesaling Blueprint, my one-on-one mentoring students, and the hundreds and thousands of people I've talked to over the years on my free strategy calls that I've offered, and just messages and comments and things like that. One of the things that I get asked all the time is, Stephen, when should I set up an LLC for my real estate investing business? Okay, so you might be wondering, if you're just getting into real estate. Now, today I want to talk about this in the context of being a real estate wholesaler. Okay, if you're wholesaling real estate, that's the example that I'm going to give. That's one of the areas that I specialize in, so I'm going to speak on that behalf. And then I'm going to show you some really cool things here in QuickBooks as well, just to kind of spark some ideas for you. So I know you're going to get a lot out of this, so make sure you have something to write with, something to take notes on. So if you're new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. Make sure to browse the channel and don't forget to hit the subscribe button along with that beautiful little notification bell right next to the subscribe button so you can get notified of new videos, new content pieces that I put out. Right now I'm averaging about 4 to 5 videos per week, and here in the very near future it will be daily uploads. So back to the topic at hand today, when to set up an LLC for real estate investing. So we're going to talk about this, like I said, in the context of wholesaling real estate, but I know there's a ton of golden nuggets here for you along the way, and I just want to kind of share with you my experience. So like I said, this is something that I get asked very often, and there's a few different things to consider. So should you set up an LLC? My answer for that is possibly, okay? It depends on where you're at in your business. So let's give 2 examples here. Let's have person A, and person A is kind of bootstrapping their business. They may have a couple of $100s to get started or hardly any money at all. They're scraping every dollar they can together to put into marketing, whether they're getting business cards made, or they're putting out some bandit signs, or they're sending out probate letters which is one of my top lead sources and strategies, which above this video I'll link to a very in-depth training on probates. So maybe they're like, okay, I'm going to send out 50 probate letters per week, and that's all I can afford right now. So that's going to be person A, and they're just kind of doing whatever they can with what they have. Is setting up an LLC the right thing for that person? Okay, so if person A describes you, if you're trying to get into real estate wholesaling, and but money is a huge concern, you're going to want to listen up to this video, because first and foremost, I want you to know that I've been there, I've been in your shoes, and I have a few experiences that I think will help you kind of make sense of this so you can make the right decision for yourself. Before I go any further in this video, I do want to say this, that I am by no means legal counsel. I am not an attorney. I am not an estate planner. I am not a CPA. I am not an accountant. So before you make any decision, I definitely recommend that you seek legal counsel, especially if this is a concerning area for you. This is just what has worked well for me, but I just want to give that disclaimer out there that if you have any questions, anything at all, to definitely seek out a local CPA, an attorney, someone that can give you professional advice. But again, as a fellow entrepreneur, as a fellow real estate investor and wholesaler, I just simply want to share my experiences because I've been getting hit up like crazy in the messages and comments and just people that I've been speaking with about this particular topic. And the time of year that I'm recording this here in 2018, it's basically tax time. So this is a very pertinent thing. So if you're person A, this is definitely going to apply to you. Person B is going to be, maybe you've decided to quit your job. You're going to real estate full time. Maybe you've been at real estate full time already for a little while, whether you're a full-time real estate agent, full-time wholesaler, full-time rehabber, landlord, that type of thing. So, and maybe you have a few deals under your belt and you're fully committed to making this business your career, and there's no plan B, there's no other option. So with those two perspectives in mind, my answer to the question, should you set up an LLC? It depends where you're at, but I do think there's some benefit. Oh, and one other disclaimer too. As you can see here, especially if you're watching this and maybe you have a legal background or you're an attorney or an estate planner or a CPA yourself and you're thinking of real estate investing on the side, you're obviously going to see here that by no means am I claiming to be some absolute, accounting expert, tax expert, legal expert. Again, this is just what's worked well for me, okay? So with these things in mind, and if you have things to add, if you have different perspectives, viewpoints, let me know in the comments below. I want this community to be able to benefit from those thoughts as well. So be sure to comment below and share those things, okay? With those two people in mind, those two perspectives, and there's other variations of that, should you set up an LLC? Well, there's obviously a psychological benefit when you decide, hey, I'm going into business, I'm doing this real estate wholesaling thing, I'm committed to making it happen. I'm going to be spending, maybe a few hours each evening building my business, which is time away from my family. I'm going to be investing money into marketing. I'm going to, I'm doing this thing. It's kind of like an act of faith. It's a commitment that you want to, that you're not just dipping your toes in the water, that you're actually going to follow through and treat this like a business and build this business. So from that angle and that perspective, I like the fact that, hey, yes, go ahead and set yourself up a basic LLC. Now, my thoughts there are that this does not need to be overly complex or overly fancy until you're making over 6 figures, okay? So just to give you a little perspective, I've set up multiple LLCs in my entrepreneurial career, from just going down to my local, just going to LegalZoom. I've used Rocket Lawyer, and I've also paid $1,200 to a fancy attorney to set up some, big fancy corporation as well. And so I've done, those different things. I've had an LLC, I've had a sole proprietorship, and I've had an S corporation. Okay, so that kind of gives you a little backdrop of the different type of entities and stuff that I've personally set up. A big determining factor, one factor, especially for those of you who are new, who are just starting out, is basically money, is your budget, okay? If you're person A over here who is literally bootstrapping your business, you barely have $1 to put into marketing, you don't even have enough money for business cards or a website, my honest answer is, especially in terms of real estate wholesaling, is to go out there and focus all of your time, all of your energy, all of your effort on marketing and generating leads and networking and understanding how this business works and generating leads, and go out and do your first deal, okay? Go out and do your first $10,000 or $15,000 wholesale deal, and then you can reinvest a couple $100 and get an LLC set up, okay? So that is kind of my recommendation there. However, if you already have So for example, I'm located in Ohio, and my latest LLC that I set up was with Rocket Lawyer, which I'll have a link in the description below. I've used LegalZoom, I've used fancy attorneys. The easiest LLC that I've ever set up is with Rocket Lawyer. The link below in the description is an affiliate link, so I just want to toss that out there. That is not the purpose of this video. The commission I get if you purchase or set up an LLC through that link is very small. So I just want to, as far as transparency, say that. But I paid $185 to set up a basic LLC here in Ohio. And so that's who I used and what I did, and it was very simple, and I loved their customer service. So if you have the funds to go ahead and set up an LLC and it's not going to absolutely cripple your finances, I do think because of the psychological commitment level of like, hey, I'm absolutely committed to doing this, let's go ahead and get this darn thing set up. I would go ahead and set up an LLC, and that's just me personally, okay? So it's going to vary from state to state depending on where you're living, but like I said, it was $185 at the time of me setting up my LLC here in Ohio. So if you have the budget, I do think there's some benefits there. Now, additionally, one of the other main benefits is being able to write off your expenses, which is huge, okay? So one of the things that I did not do very well in the beginning that took me a couple of years of fumbling around is I used to have everything out of my personal account. And after you start working with, an accountant or a tax person or something like that, you'll soon come to find out that it is important to kind of keep your business income separate from your personal income. Okay, so a couple of other considerations when setting up an LLC are protection, protecting your personal assets from being sued. And now this is an area that you do want to consult, an attorney or, a CPA, something of that nature that has a little bit more legal expertise, because a big mistake that a lot of people make, especially like if you expand your real estate investing career beyond wholesaling, and let's say you start purchasing properties like in your name and you're rehabbing them or renting them out, a lot of times people think that just because they have an LLC that they cannot be sued personally and it protects all of their personal assets. And that's not always the case, especially if that investor, that real estate investor, bought the property. Now, again, I don't want to confuse you because we're talking about wholesaling real estate. So I'm talking about when you evolve past real estate wholesaling and you get into renting out or flipping properties or buying, residential real estate. If you're in that situation and you take out the mortgage, in your own personal name as opposed to the LLC name, you're not as protected as you might think. So a lot of times people think it's going to add this huge dynamic level of protection of your personal assets, and that's not always the case, but it does add some level of protection. So there is that benefit, okay? Now, the biggest benefit in my eyes is taxes, right? It gives you the ability to write off expenses. Now, this might be a topic for a future video, but for the sake of keeping this video short and sweet, one of the things that I absolutely love about having an LLC is the ability to write off a lot of expenses for my business, okay? So I just want to flip over to my QuickBooks here just to kind of give you a small taste of different things that I've been able to write off. And then before I go, I want to touch on an S corporation, because what I did is I eventually switched my LLC, my basic LLC, over to an S corporation. And actually, now that I'm talking about that, let's just go ahead, before I get into expenses and things like that, let's talk about that for just a moment here. So switching, let's type this out here, switching to an S Corp. So with a regular LLC, it's a pass-through entity. Everything passes through to your personal, to the personal level still, right? An S corporation, I'm not going to get into the fancy legal jargon and stuff like that because I like just talking in basic layman's terms. So basically what I did for the first few years of my investing career, I just literally got my taxes done by a family friend, and then by H&R Block, just a local, tax, person, not anything fancy, nothing very strategic. And they helped me through, filing taxes with my basic LLC. As I started to get more and more successful in my real estate career and in my, as a wholesaler, as a mentor, as a consultant, things like that, what I did, I started networking with other entrepreneurs in my city, and I started hearing about a lady who had worked with the IRS for 40 years, something like 35, 40 years. And a few of my friends recommended this individual. And basically, they're like, she takes really, really good care of you. She has a great heart for helping like aspiring entrepreneurs, save as much money as possible, as humanly possible on their taxes. And she will go to bat for you no matter what. And she's kind of all about like, if you will, sticking it to the IRS. She's like, if there's a deduction, we're going to figure out, we're going to do everything above board, but we're going to take advantage of everything possible. So that was obviously very attractive to me. And I'm like, that is awesome. So anyways, I went to her office, met with her, and so she started looking at my income. And since, at the time I was making over 6 figures and my business was growing and scaling, she was telling me how, Steven, it's going to make sense for you to now that you're over 6 figures, to switch to an S corporation. And she kind of broke down what I was currently paying in taxes and what I would pay as an S corporation. And one of the biggest things to know is simply that it helps you a ton with self-employment tax. And basically it's where you give yourself like a distribution that's reasonable, and that takes away from like taxable income basically. So, and there's more that goes into it, but long story short, it benefits you immensely as you start getting over 6 figures to have an S corporation. So if you're just starting out, I appreciated the journey that I was on. I felt like it was a really good, step ladder. So sometimes, different seminars and different things will try to get you to set up some fancy $1,200 or $1,500 LLC because they're getting a huge commission behind it. But let's face it, if you don't even have your first deal yet, or you have a couple of deals under your belt, but you don't even know what the heck you're doing hardly, it doesn't really make sense to go set up some fancy corporation, because there's a lot of extra responsibility, which is a big fear that, a lot of times people let stop them. The fear of organization, the fear of taxes, the fear of, a company, all those things. Let me just tell you, my friend, it's worth it. If I told you that you were going to start making 6 figures, your worry of taxes, you'll figure it out, okay, is what I'm trying to say. You'll figure it out. Don't let that scare you. It's not as scary, and you can always ask for help, right? I don't know how often, I can't tell you how many times when I started working with this CPA, I reached out to them and their assistants like, hey, like I'm a newbie at this. I don't know, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And now, fast forward years later, they've helped me set up my QuickBooks account. So, I have things separate as far as business bank account, all sorts of business accounts, business tax. Everything is dropped into buckets. And then anytime I swipe, my business card to pay for a business expense, I literally can just go into QuickBooks, things are organized and things are dropped into buckets. And at the end of the year, come tax time, I just print off a spreadsheet and everything is already accounted for. So it's a huge, huge blessing. And I didn't set it up all by myself. I did get help with it, but it's very, very doable. So just kind of the threshold that she gave me, and again, she worked for the IRS in the ballpark of 35, 40 years, was when you start making around 6 figures, give or take. And of course, there's other factors, and that's where you want somebody who can look at your situation. Are you married? Are you single? Do you have kids? What are your other assets? There's other factors that go into it, right? So just kind of start where you are. And but the beautiful thing is tax write-offs, right? So as an investor, if you decide, not only the psychological benefit of having an LLC, the layers of protections, but the tax write-offs. So in my business, I'm able to write off advertising expenses. So, for you as a real estate wholesaler, this could be any type, whether you're doing bandit signs or, Google AdWords or, any supplies for your business. I'm able to write off advertising, Bank charges. When I do a deal, I bank with Chase. I get a $15 fee every time I get a bank wire. So when I have a $20,000, a deal that closes and the wire comes in, I get charged $15. Well, I'm able to write that off as a bank charge. Commissions and fees. If there's different, fees for different things, I'm able to write those off. Education and training. This is huge. I'm a huge fan of personal development, right? And so I am constantly buying marketing courses, real estate courses, how to become a better speaker, a communicator, a copywriter, how to write better, different, how to grow and scale my business as far as personal branding, how to grow my YouTube channel, all different things. I'm constantly learning, right? So I have a huge deduction. I pay big bucks, over 5 figures a year, right? To a mentor that's levels and levels above me, that just produces insane amounts of income, and I get to write off the amount that I pay to them each and every month to mentor me, right? Graphic design, any type of images you get made or logos for your business or business cards, I'm able to write off my Grasshopper phone number. So below this video in the description, if you're a real estate investor and you need a good dedicated business line, I used to use Google Voice. I don't anymore. I use Grasshopper because their customer service is so good and it just has more features and it's a lot more clean. And so I write that off every single month. Insurance, okay? If you have, later as you have employees, you have different things in your business, you can write that off. Legal and professional fees. So I pay, now that I'm an S corporation, the company that does my taxes, they file quarterly returns and they do all the payroll for my business, okay? And they pay me, right? So there's a fee every quarter for them to do that. That's something I can write off. Meals and entertainment. This is huge, right? Very often, as I told you, there's a lot of days where instead of working in my home office, I zip over to the local coffee shop and I grab some coffee while I'm going through some emails and getting my day started, or I'll zip over to Whole Foods and get a salmon salad for lunch. So when I'm working, I'm able to write off those meals. If I'm traveling, a few months back, I went and had a documentary video, which I'll link above this video, that kind of tells a little bit about my story. I filmed that with a friend, and while I was traveling, the hotel, everything, all the expenses with that trip, I was able to write off. Last year, I went down to meet a real estate legend in Tampa, Florida, that you may or may not know, and went out to lunch with him, visited him, all sorts of stuff. And because that was a huge business trip for me, I was able to write off a percentage of the mileage in the hotel and all those different things and all the meals. So again, I have it labeled here, my mentoring expense. When I pay a certain dollar amount every single month, which is big bucks, to this mentor, I get to write that off. So my friend, if you are considering doing the extremely wise thing of finding a personal mentor, which if you're interested, I highly recommend checking out Stephen Howell Mentoring, and I would certainly be open to considering mentoring you one-on-one for the next year for your next 5 deals. That is an expense that you can write off on your taxes. Or if you get a step-by-step course like my Ultimate Wholesaling Blueprint, again, that, which is in the description below as well, that is something that you can write off as well. So your education and mentoring expenses is something that you can write off. Any office expense, so whether it's your computer paper, your ink, stamps, anything that you're using for your letters, your business cards, if you're purchasing a printer, if you're getting, I have lighting here in my office. I had a custom desk built, and then I bought a Veridesk, which on top of my sweet custom desk that has my initials in it and everything that I had built, I have a Veridesk so I can raise my desk to be a standing desk anytime I want. I'm getting ready to get, because I'm making a commitment for you guys to grow this YouTube channel, and I want to have better quality videos, right? So I'm getting ready here in the next few weeks to purchase a multiple $1,000, high quality camera. And that's going to be a huge business, write-off as well. I had just a few years ago, I bought a MacBook Pro that's dedicated for business, and I was able to write that off, for taxes. Let's see what else here. So software and subscriptions. This is anything that you personally have a subscription to or a piece of software. So for example, I house my email subscriber list through, and I send an email newsletter out through GetResponse, right? So that's a software that I use. I have a certain shopping cart. I have a hosting company. I have, different things and tools that I use in my business that I'm able to write off as software or things that I pay a monthly subscription. Anything that I use in my business that I'm paying monthly for, I'm able to write off. So for me, software and subscription is a huge amount each month, and that's something that I can write off. Your website. So let's say you have an Investor Carrot website set up, which I have the link below. They're a great company to use for, to get your real estate investor website set up. Again, that is something you can write off. So, and then of course utilities. So there's a percentage of my home that I use for my home office. There's a percentage of my phone bill. There's my cell phone. There's, all sorts of, utilities that I'm able to write off because I work from home. So again, this is by no means an exclusive list. Like these are the only things that you can write off, but it kind of gives you an idea of kind of how that goes. So even though I make over 6 figures, now that I have an S Corp set up and I pay myself a certain distribution, I'm taxed at such a lower level. And because I have so many expenses and so many write-offs, the amount of my income, even though it's a large income, the amount that's actually taxed is very, very small. Now, it took me a couple of years to get here, but if you are serious about real estate investing and you're wondering, should you set up an LLC? My advice to you, my friend, and again, this is just my personal perspective, is that don't let it be something that stops you. Basically, if you have a couple of $100 and it's not going to cripple you, go ahead and get a basic LLC set up. If you're making over 6 figures or close to 6 figures, you might want to think about setting up an S corporation. Now, how I found this amazing person in my life and business that is able to help me with my taxes and accounting is, number one, I prayed for it for a while. I prayed that God would bring me the right person, that would really be an asset to my business, someone who's trustworthy and someone that could really, really help in an area that maybe I'm not the strongest, right? But in addition to that, it was just simply by word of mouth. It was talking with other entrepreneurs that were in other industries that said, hey, this person is good. So my friend, don't be afraid to ask around, at your local real estate investment clubs, at different meetups, with your family and friends and your circle of influence. Ask around, who's somebody that big real estate agents in your area use, big time investors. Who do they use? Who does really, really well for them? So those are just a few things to consider. It's my hope that this video has brought you a lot of value, okay? As I mentioned in another similar video to this, 2 other tools that allow me to track these expenses and to track my mileage are QuickBooks and Mile IQ. Mile IQ is fantastic. I'll do a future video on each of these. QuickBooks and Mile IQ are the 2 tools that I use. My local CPA helped me to set up QuickBooks. I did not know how to set it up myself. I used to use a really basic version. Now I use a little bit more advanced and robust version, but I'm always calling them to be like, okay, what do I do? What do I do now with this? But now, thankfully, I've figured it out and I know how to use it, and it's so refreshing knowing where everything is in your business. The last thing that I'll say, my friend, is as you start to generate more and more revenue in your business, it does make sense to keep the revenue separate. So to have like another thing that this allows you to do is to keep finances separate. Okay? Which is very, very important. So, like I said, don't let this scare you. Don't let this slow you down. But, when you have an LLC, now you can go set up a business bank account. And when you do a $10,000 or $15,000 wholesale deal, now that money can be deposited into your business bank account, and your expenses are kept separate from your personal expenses. And it becomes a lot easier to manage, taxes and things like that come tax time. So my friend, if you want more videos on this topic, definitely let me hear from you in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, if you got any value whatsoever, please do me a favor and share this video, like this video, and comment a thoughtful comment below, because I do read the comments. And my friend, I know I mentioned a few things in the description, but definitely do read through the description. And if there's any way that I can help you personally, whether it's through one-on-one mentoring, feel free to go apply at Stephen Howell Mentoring. If you're interested in learning how to wholesale real estate step by step, I highly recommend going through my course, The Ultimate Wholesaling Blueprint. But regardless of that fact, like I said, I hope you got a ton out of this video. Be sure to click the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.